بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. Inshallah, in today's class, today's class and then the last lectures of this module are going to be dealing with the prepositions. So in today's class, the only exception is in today's class we're going to finish issue 9, which is to talk about we're talking about metaphors that are real metaphors, or something else that is called a ta'arud, which is a non-direct meaning in the use of metaphors. So that's what we're going to take in issue 9. And then following that, from now until the end of the module, there are 27 prepositions that he has in the book that he says that any faqih needs to know about. This is going to be a little bit challenging because obviously the prepositions are in the Arabic language, so you're going to need to know the Arabic for this. We'll provide the translation, but all of the examples are going to be the Arabic examples. 85-90% of the examples are going to be verses from the Quran and ahadith, and in some cases there might be some kind of like poem or sentence or something like that. So that's going to be I admit that that's going to be a little bit challenging because it's talking about a language construct in the Arabic and then talking about it in English, but these are going to be very important. In today's lecture we're going to do prepositions 1 through 8, and you will see that, it sounds like a small list, but you'll see that each preposition will have multiple usages. So each of those usages will have an example, so we'll talk about those examples, and then that's why it will take some time. So of the prepositions, they're all important, but of the prepositions, I would say number 8, the last one, the ba, is very, very significant because it's one of the things that you're going to come across a lot in your writing. There's a lot of the usage of ba in the Quran and in the Sunnah, and therefore knowing, I think he has maybe 7 or 8 usages that are in the text, and of course in the books of language, and you'll have others, but these are the ones that are the primary usages that we'll find for the purposes of fiqh and usul al fiqh. That's the game plan. Inshallah, I'll see you back for the beginning of our discussion. All right, so let us begin the way we've normally been doing this, which is just to turn to the text itself. Let me just get my page here. So, as a reminder, we're going to begin with issue number 9. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. قال المصنف رحمه الله ونفعنا بعلومه في الدارين آمين. اللفظ إن استعمل في معناه الحقيقي للانتقال إلى لازمه فكناية فهي حقيقة. If a word is used, so Shaykh al-Islam Zakaria al-Ansari rahimahullah, may Allah Ta'ala have mercy on him and may we benefit from his knowledge in this world and in the next. He says, if a word is used for its actual meaning, for the purposes of moving from this actual meaning to that which is necessarily inferred, then this is called a real analogy. Okay, so here he is saying there's a real analogy, and now that you know this concept of mafhum al-mukhalafa, the opposite meaning, so then there is a not real analogy. The real analogy means that this word, there is a necessary usage of this word. If somebody is very tall, or somebody had like a tall neck, and you liken them to a giraffe or something like that, there is a necessary reason why that word has been used to indicate the tallness of the person or the tallness of the neck, for example, the largeness of the neck. So this is called a real analogy. Some of the verses that he gives as an example is, for example, in Surah Al-Zumar, verses 67, وَالسَّمَوَاتُ مُطْوِيَاتٌ بِيَمِينِهِ, and then the skies are rolled up with Allah Ta'ala's right hand. So this is an obvious analogy. It's a majaz because there can be no literal meaning to Allah's hand. We've talked about this in the past. I don't need to beat this horse again. But it is a necessary analogy. It is a real analogy because it is when you roll something up, with your hands, when you roll a piece of paper up like that. Like if I had this paper and I rolled it, then you understand how the heavens and the earth will roll. So it's a analogy but it is something that is necessarily inferred from the real usage of the word. And then he says, أو مطلقا للتلويح بغير معناه فتعريض فهو حقيقة ومجاز وكناية. So he says, if the word is used in all of its meanings, literal, metaphoric, and analogous. Sorry, I just need to make a quick correction in the manuscript. If the word is used in all of its meanings, literal, metaphoric, analogous, in order to indicate something else, not from its direct meaning, then it's called ta'rid. And I just think you just need to know it as a mustalah, as a word. There's no need to try to translate that. This ta'rid can either be literal, metaphoric, or analogous. So basically, what he's saying is that there is a real analogy and there is a non-real analogy. The non-real analogy or the non-real usage of the word, we call that ta'rid. We're moving away from the literal meaning to something else. This ta'rid, you can use it literally, metaphorically, or analogously. Like when Abraham alayhi salam says, this is Anbiya verse 63, بل فعله كبيرهم منهم. عفوا بل فعله كبيرهم هذا. When Abraham alayhi salam smashed the statues and then the people came back, who did it? He said the big one did it. So this is not a real majaz or a real literal meaning or analogy, because there is no way that the statue has, hawl al-quwwa and things like that in its own. Doesn't have its own agency. So this is an example of not using the word for real purposes. Of course, in the context of the verse, Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam is trying to use a rhetorical structure to get them to come back to their senses, which they do for a moment and then they get mad. Okay. Now we can begin the march through the first 8 prepositions that we talked about. So, al-huruf, the prepositions. The first one he says is إذن. ألف ذال نون. إذن. إذن للجواب والجزاء قيل دائما وقيل غالبا. So إذن is used to answer, للجواب, to offer something. It is said either all the time or usually. So it has 2 main usages, to answer and to offer something. In offering something, the minor opinion says either you're offering it all the time or you're offering it usually. So let's give some examples. If somebody says, أزورك, I will visit you, then you respond and say, إذن أكرمك, then I will honor you. So I have responded. So, hey, Abdullah, I'm going to come and visit you. And then you say, in that case, I will give you tea. Right? That's a response. So in the Arabic language, in the Arabic structure, it's إذن. إذن أكرمك. أو إذن أحضر لك الشاي, or something like that. And then للجواب والجزاء دائما and then the one second. No. So in both those, there's an answer and there is an offering. So oftentimes the usage comes together. In that example, I'm going to visit you, and you say, إذن أكرمك. So إذن is a response to the first statement, and it is to offer a type of reward, and then that reward can be something that is ongoing, or it can be something that is usually offered. Now, if somebody said, the example he gives, أحبك, I love you, and then you say, or I'm fond of you. You say, إذن أصدقك, therefore I will believe you. Now, someone's giving you advice and say, Wallahi, inni أحب, أحبك. You're giving somebody a hard, tough love, and they say, أحبك, and I love you. I'm saying this out of love, and then the person responds, إذن أصدقك, therefore I will listen to you. In this case, it's a response only. It's not a response and a reward. That's what I was fishing for in the text. Okay. Next page for me. Preposition. Now, preposition number 2. وإن للشرط وللنفي وللتوكيد. This is in alif and noon with a sukoon on the noon. In is for conditions, to negate, to confirm, and in this case it is extra in the sentence. A reminder that oftentimes when I provide the translation, I lift from the commentary and in rare cases the Hawashi literature to make the concepts more copacetic. Okay, for conditions. So this is from Surah Al-Anfal, verse 38. إِن يَنْتَهُوا يُغْفَرْ لَهُم مَا قَدْ سَلَفَ. If they stop, then Allah Ta'ala will forgive their past sins. So this is a condition. Okay, so this is a use of condition. And then the next example he says is to negate. إِنِ الْكَافِرُونَ إِلَّا فِي غُرُورٍ. This is in Mulk 20. And then also Tawbah 107. إِنْ أَرَدْنَا إِلَّا الْحُسْنَى. So this is to negate. إِنِ الْكَافِرُونَ إِلَّا فِي غُرُورٍ. Indeed, the disbelievers are in a state of their self-pleasing. So this is to negate their self-pleasingness. And then للتوكيد, and then to confirm. Like ما إن رأيت زيدا. I did not see Zayd. And in the sentence structure, the in here is extra. You could just say ما رأيت زيدا. I didn't see Zayd. ما إن رأيت زيدا. ما إن, indeed, I really didn't see him. So it's and that's why he said it's extra in the sentence. Okay, we'll pick up the discussion in the next clip, inshallah. All right, so we ended with number 2, so now we're on number 3. أو. وأو للشك وللإبهام وللتخيير ولمطلق الجمع وللتقسيم وبمعنى إلى وللإضراب. أو, this is the alif and the waw. أو is used, I'll just read the translation and then we'll go back for the examples. أو is used for doubt, for uncertainty, for choice, for joining with, for joining like with the letter waw. I'll explain that. For demarcating and to mean ila, or to move to another meaning like saying no rather. So let's go back and talk about that. The shaki, for doubt. He gives it as an example, Surah Al-Kahf, verse 19. قَالُوا لَبِثْنَا يَوْمًا أَوْ بَعْدَ يَوْمٍ. The people of the cave, then they emerged from the cave. How long did كَمْ لَبِثْتُمْ? How long did you sleep or stay in the cave? A day or a part of a day. So there's a doubt there. For uncertainty, Surah Yunus, verse 24. أَتَاهَا أَمْرُنَا لَيْلًا أَوْ نَهَارًا. So our command came to them night or day. So I just want to bring my stand here because I don't want to keep looking down and you don't see me. This way I can have the same. So I apologize for that. Okay, so أتاها أمرنا ليلا أو نهارا. So Allah Ta'ala's command or decree came night or day. So there's a little bit of uncertainty in that. وَلِلتَّخِيرِ, for choice. He says, he makes up a sentence. خُذْ مِن مَالِي دِرْهَمًا أَوْ دِينَارًا. Take from my wealth a dirham or a dinar, a silver coin or a gold coin. The dirham is the silver and the dinar is the gold coin. So there's a choice, and that's it, by using أو. وَلِمُطْلَقِ الْجَمْعِ, or joining things together. here he gives a line of poetry. I mean, I'll read it and then I'll explain it. وقد زعمت ليلى بأني فاجر لنفسي تقاها أو عليها فجورها. So in the last shatr, in the last part of the second stanza, is it stanza? Verse? I think it's stanza. The second bait, the second part of the line. لنفسي تقاها أو عليها. You could use واو instead of أو there. لنفسي تقاها وعليها فجورها. So this is مطلق الجمع. This is to join. And then he says, عفوا, that's for joining like with the letter واو. So أو can join things together like واو does. The letter واو. And where is our friend the letter واو in our list? Of course, it's the last one. It's number 27. So that'll be in the last lecture. So we'll learn that واو is to join things. Okay. And then for demarcating, وللتقسيم. So famous opening lines of most of the books of grammar. الكلمة اسم أو فعل أو حرف. So a word can either be a noun, a verb, or a preposition. So this is demarcating. And then he says وبمعنى إلى, and to mean إلى, such as لألزمنك أو تقضيني حقي. I will stick with you until إلى, until you bring me my right. But here he used the word أو, which I must say is not super popular in usage. You don't hear that a lot. So I'm glad he mentions it, or else you would misunderstand or mistranslate the sentence. And then he says وَلِلْإِضْرَابِ, and I translate that as to move to another meaning, like saying no rather. So this is in Surah As-Safat, verses 148. وَأَرْسَلْنَاهُ إِلَى مِئَةِ أَلْفٍ أَوْ يَزِيدُونَ. We sent him to 100,000, no to more, or to more. So that's why I translate no rather, to kind of make you understand what he's saying. Okay, and then number 4 is A. وأي ألف and ya with a sukoon on the ya, وأي, because the next one is أي with a shadda on the ya. So this one is A, ألف and ya with a sukoon on the ya. بالفتح والتخفيف, that's what I just said. للتفسير وللنداء البعيد في الأصح. A is used to define or to call someone far in the most correct opinion. Okay, so للتفسير, to define. He says the sentence he gives is عندي, or you could say عندي كنز أي ذهب. I have a treasure. A meaning what I have is gold. So here the construct is it defines. So I have a treasure. أي ذهب, defining what the treasure is, it's gold. Okay, that's an example. Or he says to call someone far, the dominant position. It says when you say ay Rabb, we call Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because He is munazzah, or He is far from us from the point of view of the ulu, but He is qareeb, فإني qareeb, from the point of view is that He's spiritually close to us. So he says وَلِنِدَاءِ الْبَعِيدِ, to call someone far, حِسًّا أو حُكْمًا. So to call somebody far who's physically far, or by its establishment, the ruling of it is that as far as Allah is far from us from the point of view is لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ. He's not saying that Allah Ta'ala is far from us, that He doesn't answer our dua. Allah, وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ, etc. وَجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ الدَّاعِ إِذَا مُطَرَّ فَجِسْتَ, etc. to the end of the verse. Okay, and then number 5, أي with the shadda is used. وأي بالتجديد للشرط وللاستفهام وموصولة ودالة على كمال ووصلة لنداء ما فيه ال. A, when it has a shadda, it is used to ask questions for a conditional clause, to ask questions in general, to connect, to indicate wholeness, and to complete a call when the definite article is used. So let's go over that. A condition, to ask questions for a conditional clause, like in Surah Al-Qasas, verse 28, أيما الأجلين قضيت فلا عدوان علي. أيما الأجلين, any one of the two endings. So this is to ask a question for a conditional clause. And then the second one is to ask a question. أيكم زادته هذه إيمانا. This is in Surah At-Tawbah, verse 124. أيكم زادته هذه إيمانا. Which one of these has increased you in faith? So that's just a general question. Whereas the first one is to ask a question of a conditional clause. And then he says, موصولة, to connect. This is verse Surah Maryam, verse 69. ثم لننزعن من كل شيعة أيهم أشد. أيهم أشد. We're going to, then we will, which one of them is more? So this is to connect the previous sentiment to the second sentiment. ودل على الكمال, to indicate wholeness. he gives a sentence. مررت برجل أي رجل. I passed by a man, what a man, or أي in this construct, أي رجل, into a real man, or to indicate wholeness. And then he says, and to complete a call when the definite article is used, ووصلة لنداء ما فيه ال. The very يا أيها الإنسان, يا أيها, يا أيها, يا أيها الإنسان, or mankind, or human being. This is in Surah Al-Infitar, verse 6. So this is to complete a call when the definite article is used. Al-insan, the definite article for the person. So the ay is ya. You don't say ya insan, you say ya ayyuhal insan. Okay, I'll pick it up in the next clip. We'll talk about the rest of them, inshallah. Okay, so we ended the last clip talking about number 5, A. So we have 6, 7, and 8. Okay, so number 6 is وإذ. وإذ للماضي ظرفا ومفعولا به وبدلا منه ومضافا إليه اسم زمان وكذا للمستقبل وللتعليل حرفا وللمفاجأة كذا في الأصح. Again, I'll just read the translation and then we'll go back piecemeal. إذ, this is the alif and the with a sakun on it. إذ is used for a past situation or an object or a replacement for the object, to ascribe to it a preposition of time for the future, to explain a cause, to express suddenness in the bayn construct in the dominant opinion. Okay, إذ اسم للماضي ظرفا, for past situation. نصره الله إذ أخرجه الذين كفروا. So Allah Ta'ala gave him victory. نصره الله إذ, by, or إذ through saving him. At the time of إذ أخرجه, meaning at the time of their being sent out. مفعولا به as an object. Surah Al-A'raf, verse 86. اذكروا إذ كنتم قليلا فكثركم. Remember when you were small in number and Allah Ta'ala increased you, meaning at the time or the situation in which you were small in numbers. وبدلا منه, or a replacement of the object. Surah Ma'idah verse 20, اذكروا نعمة الله عليكم إذ جعل فيكم أنبياء. Remember Allah Ta'ala's favor on you when He made amongst you prophets. ومضافا إليه اسم زمان, to ascribe to it a preposition of time. Surah Ghafir verses 70 and 71, فسوف يعلمون إذ الأغلال في أعناقهم. For the future, للمستقبلي. عفوا, I read the wrong. ومضافا إليه اسم زمان, sorry, to ascribe to it a preposition of noun. This is Surah Al Imran verse 8, ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا. Do not, Allah Ta'ala, do not cause our hearts to be scattered after you have guided us. And then for the future, sorry, للمستقبلي, this is Ghafir 70-71, فسوف يعلمون إذ الأغلال في أعناقهم. So they're actually going to know, and this is for the future. To explain a cause, وللتعليل حرفا, ضربت العبد إذ أساء. Again, I apologize for the slavery reference, but I strike the slave if he is disobedient. So this is a cause. To express suddenness, للمفاجأة, in the بين construct. So I had to lift this from the commentary, else it wouldn't have made sense. So بين is an Arabic construct. So he says بين أو بينما أنا واقف إذ جاء زيد. While I was standing, all of a sudden Zayd came. So the بين is a construct in the Arabic language. Now you kind of know about it. And then this is the last one he says in the dominant position. Okay, number 7, إذ. وإذ للمفاجأة حرفا في الأصح وللمستقبل ظرفا ومضمنة معنى الشرط غالبا وللماضي والحال نادرا. إذا not إذ, إذا ألف ذا ألف is a construct, is considered a preposition in the dominant opinion and is used for suddenness, for the future as a preposition, as part of a conditional clause usually, and for the past rarely. So let's look at that. إذا للمفاجأة. So for suddenness, خرجت فإذا زيد واقف. I went out and then suddenly I found Zayd standing. And this is a normal usage. خرجت فإذا زيد واقف. I went out and I found Zayd standing. The future, إذا جاء نصر الله الفتح. When Allah Ta'ala's victory comes in the future, and inshallah that future is soon for all of us, Ya Rabb. And as part of a conditional clause usually, that is the conditional clause. That's one sentiment. For the future as part, as a preposition, as part of a conditional clause. So, إذا جاء نصر الله والفتح, that is in the future, and that is a conditional clause. I have a comma here that should not be there. And then he says وللماضي والحال نادرا, and in the past rarely, such as in Surah Al-Jumu'ah verse 11, وإذا رأوا تجارة, and when they saw the trade. وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَغْشَى, Surah Al-Layl verse 1. So this is it can be in a current condition, or it could be in the past, and this is not a frequent usage, he says. Okay, and then finally the ba, which is really the meatiest one I think of them all here. وَالْبَاءُ لِلْإِلْصَاقِ حَقِيقَةً وَمُجَازًا وَلِلتَّعْدِيَةِ وللسببية وللمصاحبة وللظرفية وللبدلية وللمقابلة وللمجاوزة وللاستعلاء وللقسم وللغاية وللتوكيد كذا للتبعيد في الأصح. That's a lot. Ba is used to conjoin things actually or metaphorically, to transfer, for causes, to associate, prepositionally, for instead of, in exchange for, to ask about, for elevation, to swear, like ila, towards a goal, to confirm, for a part of, in the most correct opinion. So we have very little time. Let me see if I can do this justice. If not, then what I'll do is I'll stop when the time stops and I'll actually pick up the next lecture with the ba. So he says the eighth letter is ba, lil ilsaqi, to conjoin things. So you could say bihi da, with him is a sickness, so that's an actual or a literal joining, or metaphorically, marartu bi Zaydin, I was walking along and I saw Zayd. You didn't walk with him, but you ran into him. Okay, to transfer, ذهب الله بنورهم. Surah Al-Baqarah verse 17, Allah Ta'ala took their light. Allah took away their light. So transferring the ownership there. للسببية, for causes. This is in Al-Ankabut 40. فَكُلًّا أَخَذْنَا بِذَنْبِهِ. We took them to account because of their sins. That's the cause. To associate. Surah An-Nisa verse 170. قَدْ جَاءَكُمُ الرَّسُولُ بِالْحَقِّ. The Prophet ﷺ came, the Messenger came with the truth. Prepositionally, Al Imran 123, وَلَقَدْ نَصَرَكُمُ اللَّهُ بِبَدْرٍ. So Allah Ta'ala gave you victory at the time of the Battle of Badr. Instead of, so he quotes the hadith of Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu, مَا يَسُرُّنِي أَنَّ لِي بِهَا الدُّنْيَا. I would not be happy with other than this, or other than the world. When he asked the Prophet ﷺ to perform Umrah. وَلِلْمُقَابَلَةِ, in exchange of, okay, I ran out of time. I'm not going to finish all of them. So what I'm going to do is, inshallah, in the following lecture, I'm going to begin with the ba', so we have a full thought. I apologize for that misjudging of time. Wallahu ta'ala a'la wa a'lam wa sallallahu ala sayyidina mawlana Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Alhamdulillah, in today's lecture, we were able to take issue number 9, which is using metaphors either literally or analogously. And then we talked about at-ta'rid, which is using figure of speech or the metaphor, or even in the literal meaning, not for its literal meaning, but for something that is inferred from it. And then following that, we began this march through the prepositions. We did the first 7.5 because when I got to the ba', I realized that there's just so many, I was not able to squeeze it in. So what I'm going to do, inshallah, in the following lecture, just to repeat, in the next lecture, we will begin with the ba', and I will cover them all. So we did idhan, in, aw, ay, or ay with a shadda. The number 6 was idh, number 7 was idha, and then part of the ba'. And in these prepositions, we saw how they have multiple usages. Most of the usages are popular or common. Some of them are rare in rare cases, but they are usages that we need to understand so that when we come across them in the language of the Quran and in the language of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, we kind of know what it could mean, possibly mean. And I tried my best to give almost every single example that he gave in the book, which are, I would say, 85 to 90% of them are verses from the Quran and hadith. And in some cases, I think there was like one line of poetry and a couple of made-up sentences, just so we have an idea. This is, as I said, to repeat, as I said in the beginning, a little bit of a challenge because these are obviously Arabic prepositions, and then therefore we just need to translate them, but also know the original Arabic. So this is a point kind of where there's like a gray zone where the translation only does so much, and you have to know the Arabic at some point. And this is like a crutch. Hopefully, these courses are a crutch so that you can get to that point where you can access it in the original language. Why? Because you can't make istinbat. You can't take and derive rulings from the primary sources in other than its original language. So at some point, we have to know them, and there's no skirting around that. But there is still benefit because we can see the richness of the language. Those are the main points that we talked about, and then we'll continue in the next two lectures. Inshallah, wallahu ta'ala a'la wa a'lam wa sallallahu ala sayyidina wa maulana Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.